What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday, Nintendo issued a bit of a surprising update for a game that I gotta admit, I kind of forgot existed, but the update and the timetable for it is bringing up probably more questions than it should, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a long-awaited and now celebrated shakeup that's been announced at Activision Blizzard and Microsoft as a key figure is finally making their exit. And we also have an update for Jet Set Radio coming way of SEGA through one of their investors briefing that maybe gives us a bit of an idea as to how the game is going to be structured. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Sony and an update, sales milestone for their PlayStation 5. Now this was shown in a press release, which we can see this posted up over on Business Wire, saying that PlayStation 5 achieves milestone of 50 million units sold to consumers. This is a quote from Jim Ryan. It says achieving this PS5 sales milestone is a testament to the unwavering support of the global PlayStation community and their passion for the incredible experiences created by the talented developers from PlayStation Studios and our partners. We're grateful for all of our players who have joined the PS5 journey so far, and we're thrilled that this is the first holiday season since launch that we have a full supply of PS5 consoles. So anyone who wants to get one can get one. And yeah, it's been pretty easy to find a PS5 system now as opposed to even just like a year or a year and a half ago. And at this time, it appears that the PlayStation 5 is just about even with the PS4. Last I checked, launch aligned, it was about maybe a week behind technically. So by the end of this holiday season, into next year, it'll not only caught the PS4, should have passed it. And that's where Sony wanted to be anyway, is to do better than their last system, which was already a big success for them. So it looks like the PS5 continuing at this blistering pace right now, considering it was kind of put back behind a bit in the initial year or so when it was basically impossible to be able to ship out a large number of these systems. Also, we have a bit of a weird story here. We, of course, went over the timeline of events, everything that happened with the day before, and how Fantastic just shut down completely. The game still is up, or at least apparently the servers are still functional, but you can't buy the game on Steam anymore. They delisted it because the studio dissolved. Again, bizarre turn of events there. However, it appears people are still selling the keys for way more than they should be. And this we can see that was noticed over on Twitter. It's from Garrus saying, I can't believe they're selling the day before keys for about $200 so each. They are speculating with a scam that can no longer be purchased on Steam because there are more morons like me who want to prove how bad this game is. So yeah, people are still selling it for, again, way more. I mean, the game was up for what, $40, so it's being sold for 5 times that amount now on the secondhand market. And I guess it would just be to people who want to go into the game while it's still up and maybe capture footage or just experience it. And that's all I can think of, because otherwise I don't know why you would want this key, as I would expect those servers to go down at any moment, considering it only took about 4 days after release for the studio to disappear, and people are still trying to put the pieces together for that to figure out everything that happened there. So yeah, it seems obvious, but I guess I'll say it. Don't spend $200 on a key for the day before. Oh, and we did get some updated numbers for Starfield, specifically the player engagement numbers that Microsoft likes to do because obviously it's on Game Pass, but we can see this posted up over on their website. It has hit now 13 million players. The interesting thing, though, is they say 40 hours average playtime per player. Now, of course, there could be people who have hundreds, even 1,000 hours or something in it, and then you start dividing it up by the number of people who have at least started up the game, and yeah, sure, you can get to that amount. I mean, that's still pretty significant for a single-player game, and that's all they're really trying to do. I mean, they say over 22 million days of playtime has been recorded. That's all Microsoft wants really for Game Pass, is to keep you engaged, keep you paying for that subscription service, because I feel like most of us understand, yeah, the vast majority of people who have played Starfield at this time probably signed up for Game Pass, and Microsoft is perfectly fine with that. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and sort of this update that just popped up out of nowhere, and that's for Super Mario Run. And it sounds funny because I feel like most of us see Nintendo right now as sort of backing away from the mobile space in general, and considering Super Mario Run isn't exactly a game that has the microtransactions, gotcha mechanics, nothing like that. It was Nintendo's first shot at it, and it was in the form of, hey, you give us $10 and we give you a game, which is really out of place in the mobile phone space, as Nintendo themselves learned and seemed like they would be able to have more success. Free to play, gotcha mechanics, microtransactions, it's just accepted more in that mobile world. But we can see this over on their website with the update. So the Wonder Flowers are blooming in Super Mario Run game. So in this case, they have an event period set up where you can find Wonder Flowers in the Toad Rally from December 19th, so it is available right now, through March 14th, 2024 at midnight. They say in Toad Rally, your gauge will fill as you collect coins. Once your gauge is full, a Wonder Flower will appear, which will transform all coins into gold Goombas. They had some footage that was up on, there's like an unlisted video that was up on their, I think with their mobile channel on YouTube for it. I think they mostly just had that video up for promotional purposes, but I mean, it shows some of it in action. However, many people were mentioning that it really didn't change the game much. It was kind of just like a cosmetic thing for the mode that was already available. However, if you have Super Mario Run and maybe forgot about it, kind of like I did, technically you could fire it up here and I guess take advantage of the Wonder Flower collaboration. And as I mentioned, people, I think, were reading a bit too into the event details here, specifically the time period running up until like midway through March 14th. I feel like a lot of people are really on edge because this somehow gets linked to things like the Switch 2, and I feel like it's just because many people figure as soon as we get into 2024, we're just going to start hearing about Switch 2 stuff, like from Nintendo, and we very well could in January, sure, but the moment I start seeing something like this get linked to Nintendo's next system, I know we're just to the point where Nintendo has to just start making moves with this thing, because the Switch sales, yes, they are declining, and the NPD and just in general globally, even in Japan, they're going down a bit. Not as much as what we're seeing with the NPD, for example, and in Europe, but still, they're trailing downwards. And I feel like just getting to 2024, Nintendo, start dropping the hints, because the fact we're seeing people link an event details and timeline up to March 14th, like, oh, that's right at the end of their fiscal year, just about. Maybe that's when the Switch 2 is getting in it. We just need to get to that point, Nintendo. So let's get to 2024. We're so close. Let's get into January. Let's get this ball rolling to holiday 2024. But there you have it. Super Mario Run getting the Super Mario Brothers Wonder collaboration. My assumption here is, yeah, why not? Try to advertise to the few people who are still playing Super Mario Run by putting Super Mario Bros. Wonder, at least one aspect of it with the Wonder Flower, right in front of them. Maybe they'll buy that, and then a Switch maybe too. Next up, let's talk about a key departure that has now been announced for Activision Blizzard, of course, now part of Microsoft. And it's one we were expecting, as it was sort of alluded to prior, just a month or so ago, when the acquisition was, wrapping up. And that's Bobby Kotick stepping down and leaving his position at the top of Activision Blizzard, which he's been there for, more than 30 years now, and he has worked to really build up something like Call of Duty to where it is now, just absolute juggernaut in the gaming space. That said, people don't like him, obviously. There was a lot of stuff going on with him, different scandals, controversies. We've seen the court documents and stuff. Doesn't seem like a great guy. So I understand why, looking around. A lot of celebration right now online, but we can see this was posted up by The Verge. It says Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick is stepping down officially December 29th. Microsoft has not appointed a direct replacement and instead has rolled the suite of Activision Blizzard executives under Microsoft's game content and studios president, Matt Booty. Now, there are two memos that The Verge got a hold of here. One from Phil Spencer, who mostly spent the top half of it just kind of talking about Bobby Kotick, his contributions to Activision Blizzard, and then moved on to what would be next, which were a lot of restructuring, moving people around when it comes to their position, who they'll report to, but a lot of it comes down to Matt Booty basically being at the top and people just reporting to him. Now, he does say for most of you, your day-to-day work will remain the same. It's still business as usual in bringing more groundbreaking experiences to more players around the world. At the leadership level, these changes will provide the clarity and accountability that is necessary to achieve our ambitious goals and foster a culture that is welcoming, empowering, and committed to gaming for everyone. We have an exciting 2024 lineup of games across Activision, Bethesda, Blizzard, King, and Xbox Game Studios. I know that we will all look forward to sharing more details with our player communities when the time is right. So there you go. Bobby Kotick out in just a couple of weeks here, and I'm sure he's very sad leaving with, I feel like, probably hundreds of millions of dollars. Hopefully he's able to get over that. But anyway, going into 2024 then, we know there's going to be a Call of Duty game next year, the year after, the year after. It appears that Call of Duty is pretty much locked up for a yearly release based on reports and rumors going around up until 2027. And we'll see what happens after that, but I feel like Microsoft would like to keep the ball rolling on Call of Duty and continue to make just ridiculous amounts of money every holiday season. Which brings me back to, now they're the ones in charge of getting it done, right? Mac Booty is the one who's going to be having all these people report to him from Activision Blizzard. And while, again, I know a lot of people, of course, looking at Bobby Kotick like, all right, good, he's out. Finally, he was there overseeing the whole thing, getting it all together so that Call of Duty comes out. And even if it's bad, like I looked at Modern Warfare 3, played the campaign, wasn't great. Warzone, still fun. Multiplayer, sure, that's fun. Does incredibly well. Tops the sales charts, no sweat in the MPD, and while it might not be the best-selling game of the year with Hogwarts Legacy there, it's still possible. It's kind of a toss-up right now. We'll see how it does in December, being packaged in with PlayStation 5s, and I'm sure being a heavily requested game by most people in the mainstream. Really, my hope, if anything, is that Microsoft eventually works to a position where some of these Activision studios can do something outside of just running support and getting Call of Duty done every single year. Maybe Call of Duty can go to an every other year, every 3-year thing, but that still seems like it would go against the amount of money that they spent for Activision Blizzard, and they would want that Call of Duty there every single year. But we'll see how Microsoft's able to handle it with Bobby Kotick out here in a couple of weeks to close out 2023. It's going to be up to Microsoft to make sure Call of Duty gets out a year from now for the holiday season, so we'll see how Matt Booty and Phil Spencer can handle it. Next up, let's talk about SEGA and all of those games that they announced previously at the Game Awards with something like Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi, getting some small updates in a recent investor and management briefing. Now, we can see this posted up over on the Sega Sammy website, and it's page 36 for this slide, which you see different cards for each of those games. So pretty cool. We at least get new artwork, or I guess you could even say new renderings for each game, and each one does come with a description that some of them at least give us a little bit of new information, others not really. I mean, like, for example, Shinobi, run through the world of Shinobi full of monsters and ninja actions. So, great. It says your clan and the world are counting on you. For Streets of Rage, says you take control of one of the ex-officers and make the city a place where people no longer have to walk the streets of rage. Great. And for Golden Axe, defeat your enemies with a variety of attacks with swords and magic. The legendary story about the battle axe, Golden Axe, is about to begin. Crazy Taxi, cheerful feeling of freedom and fusion of nature and city. Peel out the new stage of Crazy City. But the big one, I think, is probably Jet Set Radio, because it says experience the rebellion movement that feels free in a suffocating society. Make friends, increase your fans, and create a movement. And it does say Tokyo Street Open World. Interesting. Okay, so the open world aspect, I think, makes sense to basically all of us. Like, yeah, let's make an open world Jet Set Radio style game. That's great to hear. Basically confirmation, I guess, here. But having the part, make friends, increase your fans, create a movement. So I feel like as you go through, you'll start as an unknown, and I guess in this case, you'll be building up your fan base that, I mean, probably could offer new upgrades or things you can get in the game. Sure, so there is a progression path there, and the idea of making friends, you've done that in previous Jet Set Radio games where you'll bring more people into your crew and you'll get different abilities, that sort of thing, right? Or you get new people to play as. But what I'm thinking here is maybe there would be an online component to it as well, where you can just play with your friends in an open world style area for Jet Set Radio. That would be really, really cool. And I know we're basically dealing with some very small amounts of information, a lot of speculation on it, but that's kind of what we're going to deal with until Sega is really ready to talk about this thing. And as crazy as it sounds, there have been some discussions around this game potentially coming out at the end of 2024, a year from now. That's hard for me to believe based on how little we've seen so far, but even if it's 2025, that would still be pretty exciting, because the fact that we just had it revealed in a few seconds of footage to it actually coming out in, like less than 2 years, I would take that. But just in general, having Jet Set Radio come back, some like Crazy Taxi, Shinobi, really, really cool stuff to look forward to here from Sega. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a big sale that Sony is currently running on their PlayStation Store, and that's just their big holiday sale. It'll be running until January 17th, so you will have time to go through these different games. Maybe after Christmas, you unwrap a new system, and you want to look for some games to pick up. Well, they have a ton of games on sale, and many of them are marked down quite heavily. We're talking a few of these like 80, 90% off. So I picked a few out and we'll go over them here, which starting at the top, we have FC24, 60% off. Mortal Kombat 1, 40% off. Hogwarts Legacy, that's just half off. Final Fantasy 16 at 40% off. God of War Ragnarok, 43% off. The Crew Motorfest is already 50% off. It's actually not a bad game either. That's the thing. It's flown completely under the radar, and it's Ubisoft with a crew game. I feel like a lot of people are just like, yeah, I'm good. But it's a fun game. Assassin's Creed Mirage at 30% off. Street Fighter 6, 34% off. Resident Evil 4, 50% off. Keep in mind, Resident Evil 4 does have that PlayStation VR 2 mode. So if you pick it up here for half off, you also obviously have access to that then, if maybe you're getting a VR 2 for the holidays or something. Jedi Survivor at 50% off. The game does run much better now compared to how it did when it came out, and that is an easy recommendation for me. Good game. WWE 2K23 at 67% off. Keep in mind, the next wrestling game will probably get unveiled, I think, in January, and we'll probably see a March or April release on 2K24, but still 67% off is not too bad. Elden Ring, 40% off. The Last of Us Part 1, 43% off. Need for Speed Unbound is a healthy 85% off. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga at 70% off. Borderlands 3, 85% off. Dead Space, 60% off. Marvel's Midnight Suns at 70% off. One Piece Odyssey, 60% off. Immortals of Avium, 60% off. Mass Effect Legendary Collection is 90% off. Remember, there's 3 Mass Effect games in there for 90% off. Titanfall 2, 80% off. Go ahead and drop $4 on this one. Play through the campaign. You can thank me later. BioShock Collection at 80% off. The Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie is 25% off. Returnal, 58% off. Deathloop, 80% off. So there's a lot of stuff on sale here. Even seeing some of the first-party stuff from Sony get some pretty good markdowns is just a good holiday sale in general, and there's still a lot of stuff in there to pick from. So of course, look through it, leave some suggestions down below as to what people should be checking out. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played a game in the Jet Set Radio series? Wow, 64% say no, 36% say yes. So this is an interesting opportunity for Sega, because Jet Set Radio, while I remember it on the Dreamcast and then also Future on the original Xbox, that was a long time ago. I understand that. Like, if you consider the fact that we are 20 years removed from the original Xbox, just about, and obviously more than that from the Dreamcast days, yeah, there's a large number of gamers who have come into this space in the last 10 years or so who know nothing about this franchise, and Sega could introduce it to them for the first time and maybe make a lot of new fans of the series. So I'm very curious to see how Jet Set Radio is maybe just viewed by the current generation in gaming, and maybe it can get a foothold, and yeah, maybe it can become a big pillar for Sega alongside of some of their other franchises, whether it's Sonic, Like a Dragon, or Persona. You imagine having those 3, and then it's like, oh yeah, the other one, Jet Set Radio. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Durabor, says, it's really sad to see that Insomniac doesn't revisit the Resistance franchise, be it on their own volition or at the behest of Sony. So Sony basically just has Insomniac for the most part right now, as the Marvel studio. Eventually, there are plans, at this time anyway, of another Ratchet and Clank game, but that seems like it'd be set up for the PlayStation 6. And when you start looking through the budgets, the royalties, everything going on between Marvel and Sony, it makes sense why right now Sony's thinking, Insomniac, you're a Marvel studio, we're gonna kind of keep the Marvel projects within the studio because we've seen that you can get it done in a timely fashion, and these games are expensive, but because it attracts such a wide audience, they end up being profitable, even though they cost just ridiculous amounts of money. So Sony is, it's interesting. I will say that the budget stuff, everything with these documents that leaked out certainly paint a picture that games are getting expensive, and I don't know how much longer this is going to be sustainable in general. Is a small peek into the back end of developing games, and it's not looking great when it comes to this being a continuing trend going forward. It still looks like, to me, something will eventually have to break with AAA games. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. We're Super Mario Bros. Run getting a random update with Mario Wonder. Let me know if you're still playing it and if you were excited to see that update. And then also, Bobby Kotick finally out after 30 years. A lot of celebrating online, but what do you think the future holds for Call of Duty going into 2024 under Phil Spencer and Matt Booty? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.